Hey guys, welcome to another video. Purple Political Talk here. Today is Sunday, October 17th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about Joe Biden's current unpopularity and how that's going to have very big long-term political impacts, and discuss a little bit what those impacts will be and how they will really shape the future of American politics as we know it. But before we do begin this video, I want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, and to turn on post notifications to be up to date with all of our latest content. And also to remind you guys that channel memberships are now open. If you would like to become a Purple Political Talk channel member, you could do so by pressing the link down in the description or the join tab next to the subscribe button. And in that spirit, I did want to give a very big thank you to our Purple Political Talk channel members, David Maxwell and Adam Hurst. We really cannot do this without you. But now that we've gotten all of this out of the way, let's get started with the video. So, over the last month, I think we could really see a very big dive in Biden's popularity. And here is 538's approval, right, of Biden. It's an index and average. And 538 has the tendency to be a little bit more biased towards the Democrats, but I think this still shows a point. And I think that honestly is one of the best tools we can see to actually visualize it with like a nice graph. And we see that ever since, I would say, mid-August, which that was around the time that Afghanistan hit, we saw an approval dive for Biden. But ever since then, we've continued to see a very big approval dive. And I think that it's just been a mixture of a lot of bad events for Biden happening at very bad timings. The economy is in disarray. We really clearly can see how, a lot of these different things that Biden's been trying to get through Congress have not gone through because of congressional gridlock. And all these things, whether they are directly a source of Biden and his administration itself, they're going to have a long-term impacts. In some cases, they're not really their fault and they're not really at fault for it, but the impacts are going to be felt, and people who are they going to associate? Whoever is in power. So, I think that it's pretty clearly, stated here. We see he's underwater by 4%. And if we compare this with Trump, he's still over Trump, I guess, if you could say, but he's closely going to reach. And if his approval dives continue the same way, they're going to reach Trump levels. So I think that, all of this is very important. So I really do think that all these things are going to have long-term impacts. And a lot of the sources of these approval dives we know. So number one, especially when it comes to demographics, number one, we're seeing a big dive amongst Hispanic voters. Hispanic voters used to approve of him to a certain level, but that's gone. Suburban women, I that's another group of people that are going to be very important moving forward in the political spectrum. Suburban women, I would say, are the people that got Biden elected in the first place. And a lot of these women, they're just going back to brunch per se, which it just kind of saying that they don't care about politics anymore. Now that Trump's out of office, that polarizing figure, not many people are going to care. So in many ways, it's it's kind of a repercussion and an effect of the way the Biden campaigned. If we go back to the 2020 election, we see how Biden ran his campaign, and his campaign was based on building back America better. That was his main thing. And how did he do that? By getting Trump out of office. Every single thing that Biden did in the campaign trail was really very influenced by trying to get Trump out of office. And ultimately, I think that that's starting to catch up with him. We're seeing the current situation of the country, and a lot of people are not happy. The economy, we have inflation that's really up in the roof. And that's another reason. A lot of polls are saying that people heavily disapprove of Biden when it comes to the economy. And, it's something that's a reality in the country. If you go to the supermarket, you're going to realize this big shift in prices. And again, it could be said that these are things that are not caused directly by Biden administration. And I think that to a certain extent, they aren't. But what's really important here is that, the Biden administration is still finding itself responsible. And to quote Biden himself, he's the president of the United States and the buck stops with him. So anything that happens in the country right now, it's going to be his responsibility to take care of. And a lot of it has to do, especially with the economy, with supply chain shortages. And I think that Americans are going to have a very different economic period in the next couple of months that has not really been seen before. Where experts are warning that we might not have the same Christmas season that's been very commercialized, where there's millions of things to buy. There's going to be shortages of all these things. So it's something that's going to have impacts on the daily lives of Americans. And here's the thing: sometimes politics is something that really doesn't have a big impact on people, because a lot of the things that get through don't really impact the majority of people. In some cases they do, when they pass, for example, healthcare reforms and things like that. But once you start getting into some of the things that have been passed recently, which is a lot of cultural, if you would say, bills, where Congress has been focusing a lot in part in the culture and identity politics side of things. But in certain bills don't matter. Raising the debt limit doesn't really impact daily lives of Americans. It does in some underscoring ways, but it's not the main reason. But once you start talking about the economy itself, and I guess that raising the debt limit is an economic policy, but directly affecting the things that people could buy and things that people could see with their own eyes, that's when you're going to start seeing big issues. And if, for example, just in case the Christmas situation does not get resolved, and it's a very big contrast and people notice it clearly, I think that the Biden administration is in trouble. Again, people vote based on economy. That's the biggest thing that people vote on. And I think time and time again, we've known that. And come 2024, I think that this is going to be a very big issue when you start talking about what the possibilities are in 2024, what the possibilities are next year. And I think, honestly, for the Democrats, 2024 is still, to a certain extent, savable. I mean, they still can probably pull something off and try to win. Again, I really highly doubt that, at this point, they're going to win in 2024, but that's a discussion for another day. What I think is really more important here is the next year's election. 2022 election is coming up in less than a year almost. And with this, I think that you're going to see a rise similar to the Tea Party, where a lot of people are campaigning based on economic issues. And, a lot of the things that people were worrying about in past election year in 2020, where we saw a lot of people worry about COVID, clearly, because COVID's been a very big part of everyone's life for the last couple of, months. About, some cultural issues with Black Lives Matter and police brutality and things like that. All the things are going to be out the window once people see the economy as the number one issue. And the truth of it is that Biden and his managing of the economy, whether it be him directly or indirectly, because I mean, there's things that external factors that do influence the economy. At the end of the day, he's the president and he's gonna face the implications. So I want to show you guys a little bit more of the political impacts that this could have. Right now on your screen, you're going to see the Senate map for 2022 with what I would say are pretty much safe or likely states already filled in. Whatever is left to fill in, I would say could be also considered likely, but for the most part is going to be your toss-up states. So what's important here? The Democrats, to win, they need 4 more seats. Where can they get them? Well, you could say, well, they could get them in Wisconsin, they could get it in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, for example. They keep all of those. Now, I think that it might be harder, to gain those states if the situation of the country is where it is today. I mean, the economy. If the economy is still the number one issue come 2022, I would say Wisconsin and Pennsylvania will go back to the Republican Party. And I think that, the Republicans are likely at this point to run their campaigns via the economic message. And I think, honestly, that's the best way to go for them. Because if the Democrats have that, I guess, weakness, when it comes to the economy, just target it and you might fare off well. Now, I do think that, the Republicans, of course, are going to win in some of these states that, they're likely to win in the first place. And with that, there's just a 50-50 Senate, and it comes down to these states, to these 4 states. If Chris Sununu runs, I think it's pretty easy for them to win in New Hampshire. And let's suppose that all the rest of these states, they go Democratic. The Republicans regain the majority in the Senate. So my point here is that The reality of it is that, I would say a Senate map that was very favorable towards the Democratic Party just a mere couple of months ago has completely shifted again because of Biden's, administration's shift in everything. I mean, I think that at this point, Biden administration is really facing big amount of crisis. And truly, it just really comes down to the fact that, a lot of these things have not been resolved. And when they try to be resolved, many other factors start getting into it. And again, there's some things that you can say that it's not really Biden and his administration's fault. And I acknowledge that. But the reality of it is that in the political impacts of it, people are going to be seeing Biden as the head figure of all of these things, and his party is the one who's going to pick paying for all of this stuff politically, because ultimately they're the ones that are in power in Washington. They're the ones that have all the House, the Senate, and the White House. So truly, there's no one else to blame, and the American people are going to see it that way, I think, at this point, with the information we have, which could spell off disaster for the Democrats moving forward. So, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. And I do apologize, guys, for not being here with you guys for the last couple of weeks. It's been, or 2 weeks rather. It's been extremely busy, and every time I sat to film something for you guys, it's a disaster. I couldn't because I had other important things to do. But I think I've settled kind of all the timing things. So this week you guys should probably expect having 3 videos out, if not more. And I'm really excited to be back. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.